Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres. And boy, it's been one of those days. So let me fill you in. So this morning, first thing, Henry had to haul off. He's got a list as long as your arm of places he's got to go. Everything from dropping a book off at a friend's house who bought a book from me, to trying to find lugs and lug nuts for a friend who had the lugs break off on his vehicle, so he's got a vehicle dead on the side of the road right now, and you know, all kinds of stuff. Plus we did our early voting. We get mail-in ballots in Arizona. Most people in Arizona do vote by mail because it's such a long distance to someplace where you can vote. And we got our ballots in yesterday. And because we don't really trust the post office anymore, Henry drove it by the courthouse today to drop it off at a drop box. So yeah, that way there's no, oh gee, look, it's the election's over and we found this many sitting in the back of a post office. So he was doing that. I was doing some cleanup, some getting set up, and he said, hey, would you video some of your stuff down in the studio today? And I said, sure, no problem, because I've got a bunch of things that need to be sharpened, a few things that need to be drilled, you know, just a lot of stuff. But I had to place an order today with one of my jewelry suppliers. And, oh gosh, I've been buying from these guys for probably 25 years at least. And I went online this morning to get all the code numbers and stuff I need, and they've updated their website. So the first thing I had to do in order to be able to sign in was update my password, because obviously companies never seem to keep your passwords when they change up their website. So that went really smoothly. I put in my email associated with my account. They immediately sent me a link. I was able to, and the link was like this long. It was amazing. I'm like, whoa, got to highlight that whole thing and save it, you know. Pasted it in, worked great. Updated my access to the site so that I could get the wholesale numbers and all that other stuff. And then I spent like an hour and a half trying to find stuff on the website. And as I said to the girl when I finally did call to place the order, I said, the website's really pretty. She said, that is what I've been hearing from everybody. The website's really pretty, but it's really hard to find stuff. I said, I came that close to walking down to the studio and writing down all the code numbers for the various things I needed, simply because I couldn't find some things. It took me forever to figure out what category they'd stuff things under. And a lot of the search algorithms, you know, the search algorithm is just the computer science term for the computer language part that tells how it's going to work, right? So if you type in the word nickel, for instance, which I did today, and spell it wrong, which I did, I always spell it wrong, it will barf on that. It can't figure out that you might mean, like sometimes if you search on Google, for instance, their search algorithm is pretty good. It'll say, did you mean this? And it'll give the correct spelling and stuff like that, and you can just click on that. Well, this algorithm is not that smart, so it would just go, bleh, no products found. And I'm like, I've got a whole shelf of those products in my studio. I know you sell them. So, you know, an hour and a half later, and I was also looking for a couple of new products, so that even if I had the numbers, I wouldn't have been able to find what I wanted. So it was quite the process. So that hour and a half that I had slated to working down the studio is long gone. It's afternoon. I still haven't had lunch. But I have something that needs to be done. And that is, it's time for the next step in the pizza making process, because it's a Friday afternoon. So you won't see this on Friday, but I've already done the preliminary setup on this, so it's all ready to be mixed and beat up into dough, and that's what I'm going to do. Oh, and I need water. That helps a lot, yes. Need one more addition of water. All the dry ingredients are in there. Plunk, plunk. Yeah, this is the nice thing about it being hot weather. The only nice thing I can think of right now, because it's like, it's 93 in the National Forest. I think it was 98 the last time I looked in the yard. It's too warm. And it's humid, which for us is just like not fun. We're just not used to that humidity thing anymore. But the nice thing about warm weather is that I don't have to reheat the water that I had previously heated for my dough. So let's see if I can beat this guy up. I just need to stir him until he comes together, and then start beating him up on the mat here. I love making pizza on Friday because it gives us multiple meals. We do not eat the whole pizza. We eat a very small part of it, usually with a salad or veggies or something. And that gives us a couple more meals during the weekend where we don't have to do anything in order to have the meals other than reheat it. Right now we're trying not to heat up the kitchen too much when we bake things. Bloop. So I'm willing to heat it up on Friday afternoon to have a real pizza with a really crispy crust and just the right amount of cheese and other goodies on top. I had the misfortune of having a really gross pizza. It took me about a month, it took me about a week to recover from. And it reminded me of how much I enjoy good pizza. And there's nothing like being able to customize your own pizza. I want exactly this much cheese, I want exactly this much meat or veg or whatever else you want on it. And yeah, get very spoiled. It's one of the reasons we don't go out to eat around here very often, because, to be honest, there's not that many places that do food better than we do. And once in a rare while, we'll get something in town. A little restaurant there that called the Ranch House is pretty decent. It's not fancy, but it's got a good. They make a good burger. They make good crispy fries. Sometimes it's just nice if you've been really running all day to not have to do any dishes at the end of the day. Just sit down in air-conditioned comfort, drink as much unsweetened iced tea as you want, and they'll even bring you sugar if you want it sweetened, but we don't sweeten ours. Once you break the habit of sweet, you don't need it anymore. So, time for a little bit of flour, and then this will grow up to be dough. It's a little wet, and we'll fix that. I think I got just a smidge too much water in it before, but we can fix that. We have the technology. I got it sticky. That's the first time I've done that in months. But I thought that I mismeasured the first batch of water today. Just a smidge. It was a little bit too much of a hurry. But we have the technology. We can fix that. And it'll be fine. It'll make lovely pizza. Same as always. Just a little stickier right now. And you'll notice I'm actually moving it around, picking up a little bit more flour when I do that, because it's still a little too sticky. And that's the easiest way to pick up flour, just to roll it around into different spots on the board. And there's got to be as many different ways of kneading dough as there are people out there. Some people are very meticulous about you know, folding it over and smushing it down. But I'm stretching it, which is the whole point. Oop, smushed it too hard. And I'm forming gluten, which is what gives it that nice chewiness and lets it get nice and crispy, crusty. Because I'm going to bake this on a stone in the oven. And I've done this enough times that I can tell by the stretchiness of the dough when I've done it enough. It's really not super picky. You can not knead it quite as much as you should, and the world won't end. The flavor will still be good. This is a bread flour that I'm using here. So it has specific protein versus gluten balance. And I can make it with a regular flour, but we like it the way it comes out with bread flour. Our favorite brand is King Arthur. We like that because we're using an unbleached bread flour. No weird chemicals used to bleach it or anything. It's a employee-owned company. And I'm kind of big on family and employee-owned companies when I can. It doesn't mean they always do a good job, but in this case, we've been very pleased with the quality. Unfortunately, the flour has gotten to be, like everything else, very expensive lately. But I did discover I could get it at a much more reasonable price at Walmart. So there aren't too many things I buy at Walmart, but my bread flour is one of them, because it's usually $2 or $3 less per 5-pound bag than it is at the grocery store. And they almost always have it, whereas they frequently run out at the grocery store. So, there we go. Plunk. Now I'm just going to oil the previously used bowl. Gonna drop it top down first, bloop, so that the top gets covered with oil to help keep it from drying out. Then flip it over, tuck it around so that it's poofy in the middle, and cover it with a cloth. This is my, it looks terrible, it is clean, it's so stained from being used for years. And as soon as I wash my hands, I'm going to put this in the pantry. It lives in the pantry for proofing because it's pretty draft free in there. And we have a propane fired freezer, which means the heat from the propane fires that run the freezer. I know that sounds funny to say fire is running a freezer, but yeah, there's a heat and cool cycle involved in all refrigeration. And yeah, it makes it warmer in that one corner, which means it's perfect for raising any kind of yeast products. So there we go. I'm now no longer covered with dough. That was particularly messy today. Okay, woo, here we go, into the pantry. Hi, Mr. Jack. You taking a nap down there? He says, no, I'm hoping you'll drop food on the floor. He says, I know how you guys work. Sometimes you drop food. And while I was in there, I stuck my head in the freezer. We buy Canadian bacon in quantity at the big box store and freeze it in usable size packages. And I think we're going to do a Hawaiian pizza today. So I'm going to put away the olive oil, which I'm done with. Cover the flour to keep critters out. I'm going to put this in the little freezer because I do want to keep the rest of it frozen. And I'm going to set the timer for 1.5 hours. Okay, so I have an hour and a half in which I can work. So I'm going to go down to the studio and I'll take you guys with me. Yep.
A few moments later.
Hey everybody, we're now down in the studio. And we are standing at a grinding bench. This is what they call a wet wheel. The reason it's called a wet wheel is because there's a water source up here that drips down through this irrigation hose, comes in the top, and keeps that wheel wet. Now this was used yesterday, so there's also water sitting in the bottom here. And what a wet wheel does for you is it keeps the metal cool. If you've ever filed or ground something made out of metal, you know that the friction of the grinding process will create heat. And not only can you burn your fingers, but you can overheat the metal, which is something we don't want to do. So I'm going to turn this on and show you. I have about 200 of these fibula, which are a type of safety pin, that need to be sharpened. And I also have a bunch of cast pieces here on the bottom. They need to have an assortment of bits and pieces of bumps and lumps from the casting process taken off. I have already done a basic polish on these so that I can see imperfections, and I'll be touching them up with a wet wheel. So let's get going. I am wearing hearing protection because this is loud. Usually what I do is I actually my hearing aids can be used as Bluetooth. I can get my phone calls through them. And I will run my phone plugged in so I don't wear it out in terms of juice. And I will play music while I'm doing this, or listen to lectures. I particularly like the British Museum lectures. Some of them, well, every once in a while you get some old fogey who reminds me of one of my least favorite professors in college, who kind of makes everything he does kind of boring. But most of the people are very excited about what they're talking about, and very cool topics, and yeah. So sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I listen to lectures, but I rarely listen to nothing, because otherwise you're kind of listening to the inside of your head as this makes a lot of noise, which isn't any fun at all. So let me get things plugged in and turned on. Here comes the noise. I always wait for it to settle down before I start working at it. It is belt driven, so it is possible to find the belt bottom. Turn the water on. And yeah, you do get a little wet in the process, and my watch is water, so I don't worry about it.